Shalom, Ka'ala Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rukok Radash. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect. And Shalom to the 130 Yasharala, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing our true heritage, we were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about this article that's come out to just show some of the more abominable filth that Edom is pushing out into the world now that he believes he's sitting in the God seat. But before we get into this article and break it down of what's going on, let's read this. This is Genesis 6:12. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his ways upon the earth. So we are now living in the time where you have, or should I say, the earth and the inhabitants of the earth under the leadership of these Edomites. And when I say Edomites, I'm talking about the biblical name for the so-called Israeli and Caucasian identity. Okay, that's their true ethnicity. They are Edomites. Okay, this is the reason why there's that popular idiom that says white people have no culture. Well, they do, but the thing is that they are purposely running from their culture ever since they received it, and that's because there's a curse on them that they would live as fugitives and vagabonds upon the face of the earth, basically always running from their identity and running all over the world. Okay, never staying home, right? And having enough, I guess you could say. But we're now in a place where this nation has been given the reins to rule the world, right? It tells us in Job 9:24. Job prophesied about the end of the world in the time when the earth has been given over into the hands of the wicked. Okay, and the wicked are these biblical Edomites. Now, these Edomites, besides living an abominable lifestyle, they're bringing forward abominable actions, like what you're reading here, right? It says Sam Altman, who is an Amalekite, right? Amalekites are the top tribe of the nation of Edom. So ultimately, he's an Edomite, but more specifically, he's an Amalekite from the nation of Edom. It says Sam Altman and his husband fund startup to edit baby genes. The OpenAI boss has invested in a controversial startup Preventive, which aims to genetically engineer children free from the hereditary diseases. Now, like I said, we're now at a point where science, under these devils' leadership, has gotten to the point where it can now modify the quantum realm and DNA chains using CRISPR technology. Okay, CRISPR technology is simply it's a chemical scissor, basically, right? That they basically harnessed the ability of DNA, ability to cut DNA strands, and they also hijacked another DNA mechanism which copies and replicates certain genetic coding. Well, these devils, they've gone through and they've figured out how this works to a certain extent, not to understand what it actually does, because these devils haven't even mapped the majority of the human genome. They've gotten a good bit of it, but a lot of it they don't really even know what it is. They refer to it as junk DNA, but there is no junk DNA. There's a lot of things that are unknown to these devils, and they're just simply discovering it. This is Obadiah 1:6. How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? Right? And that's ultimately the spirit of these Edomites. See, the Lord has put the spirit on these Edomites so that way they could discover things like this, right? And other things that have helped them to gain control of the world. And why is that? Well, that's because the Lord rises up nations and he brings them down. And right now, the Lord has raised up the bases of men, that would be these Edomites, to be in a position of power, to fulfill the prophecy that their forefather Isaac gave on to these Edomites' forefather Esau, that he would, his deathbed blessing to Esau, right? That they would basically live off the fatness of the earth, that their dwellings would be from the dew of heaven, right? That they would live by the sword and all these things, right? That they basically would have the best of the best as in this time right now, in the time of the Gentiles, right? And like I said, these are the last people to be in rulership, and so because of that, the Lord has given unto them the knowledge, the wisdom, and the understanding of this third dimensional plane that we live in, which they are currently the masters of, right? This is why they're able to create these high-tech, stealth bombers, go into quantum mechanics. They just recently displayed a fusion for the first time a couple months ago, right? They have the large CERN, or what is it, Large Hadron Collider, over that CERN over there in Switzerland. These devils are doing a lot of amazing things, regardless if you like them or not, right? And that's because ultimately the Lord is dealing with these devils, so that way they can do what is needed for them to do, so that way they could reach a certain level, and hence prophecy could be played out. Well, what's happening is these devils, with all this knowledge and all this wisdom that they've acquired, what do they decide to do, right? Do they decide to improve humanity and make it better? Do they remove things that hurt society? No, they package things up. They make a shit ton of money off of the needy, right? And they use it to their own benefits, right? To enrich and to further their abominable lifestyle, be it the way that they live, to the economic practices that they perform. Well, enough about that. Let's go and read what these devils are doing. It says, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and his new husband Oliver Mulherin, which, by the way, these two bundle of sticks, they're Edomites, okay? And this is Esau's natural nature. Okay, this is why they go off and this is why they're at the forefront of always the most debaucherous lifestyles, okay? This is why, and that's because this is the altered, skewed soul that is inside of these people, okay? From the wicked, go forth the wicked, okay? And that's what's happened, okay? Continuing. Have joined Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong backing a controversial new Silicon Valley startup called Preventive, a company openly pursuing CRISPR-based embryo gene editing to end hereditary diseases. Now, one thing that these devils are probably seeking to do is, you ever hear of that disease called Crohn's disease, which basically messes up the person's stomach, right? They can't eat like dairy and all these things, right? They tend to have really bad stomach problems, right? That's Crohn's disease. Well, that right there, the majority, I'm talking like 80-90% of people who have Crohn's diseases are Amalek, right? Amalekites, right? And that ultimately is the Lord, putting that curse upon them, man, right? But these devils, trying to undo the curse that the Lord put upon them, are doing things like this so that way they could try to end those curses themselves, okay? You had Nora Harari saying they don't need God anymore. They can make their own water, right? They can make God as angry as they want because they don't care anymore. Well, this is part of that. Continuing, it says, behind the Polish language lies a darker reality. This marks the first step towards commercialized designer babies, right? Didn't I say that these devils want to package up things and sell them? See, that's ultimately what they're doing. They don't want to give us away and get rid of, cleft lips and, heart defects and things like that for you Jakes. No, this is going to be reserved for them, just like in the movie Elysium. All this information, all this amazing life-saving technology is all going to be reserved for the upper echelon, right? It will not trickle down to the average Israelite, Negro, Latino, Native American, right? This is simply for them, not for us. It says, a form of genetic engineering explicitly banned under U.S. law and condemned across most of the world. Preventive has raised $30 million, established a lab in San Francisco, and is exploring foreign jurisdiction like the UAE, United Arab Emirates, right, which is basically owned by Amalek. Okay, the top leadership of Saudi Arabia are Amalekites. Okay, the Saud family, they're the ones who Saudi Arabia is named after. They're Amalekites. Okay, and they go back to the Arab tribe that descended from Esau when he hooked up with the Nabateans. Nabateans being the Ishmaelites, who basically lived next to the Edom's land. They're in what's known as Jordan today, right? Well, from that tribe, come the Saud family. Okay, and this same family are the family that fought with Muhammad, right, back in around 600 A.D. or even before, after that. So that just shows you, man, that these devils, they'll come in and they'll take over, and then they'll swear they're the native inhabitants. Continuing, where such experiments might move forward under looser oversight. Founder Lucas Harrington, a protege of CRISPR pioneer Jennifer Doudna, insists the company isn't yet implanting edited embryos, but acknowledges active research on altering human life at its earliest stage. Mulholland describes the couple's investment as an effort to help families avoid genetic illness. While that is obviously a noble goal, the reality is not. How many of the first iterations of GMO children will have to suffer in the process? An untold number. Even if only one child is born through this technology, that individual's descendants could pass altered genes through future generations. Right? There you go. For all flesh had corrupted his ways upon the earth. So we're literally reading what is happening. And remember, the Messiah, Yahweh, which is the true name of so-called Jesus Christ, right? He warned us in a prophecy saying that in the end times, in the end days, it will be as the same as in the days of Noah, right? The same time when Genesis 6 and 12 was referring to, okay? So that's why all these things are back now, right? We have the Tower of Babel, but today they refer to it as large, the LHC, the CERN Super Collider, right? We have Cain back, but basically it's the nation of Edom, right? And all these things, right? All the things old are new again, and they're basically here, but in a more advanced, futuristic form. And it's up to our spiritual eyes to point this out. Let's continue. Creating ripple effects that no one can predict or control. Now, there you go. These devils, these Edomites, because regardless of how well-intentioned their efforts are and how much good they attempt to do, Esau, being the wicked, is going to create wickedness, okay? And there's so many examples of how these devils have tried to fix something. They've tried to, bring in a species to take care of another species, and that species that was brought in ends up becoming a whole different problem and doesn't even solve the original problem. That is the things that come from these devils, and they don't do it purposely, right? It just happens naturally, spiritually. Because why? Well, because they are the wicked, okay? And from them comes wickedness, okay? Which means, what is it? A good tree bears good fruit, a bad tree bears bad fruit, okay? And that's the thing. So these devils, on some of the higher levels, these devils know what they're doing, and they find, joy in committing this wickedness, right? And or finding ulterior motives to benefit, like in this case here, right? They're coming out in an altruistic manner, saying, "Oh, we want to save the babies," but really, what they want to do is they want to corner the market and basically provide them with an ability to do something that nobody else can, right? And to basically make these super soldiers the same thing that Hitler wanted to do, right? Or they accuse Hitler of wanting to do. So, but this just shows you, man, these Edomites, they're something else. And this is why the Lord needs to come back and take them out. So let's continue. It says, once genetically modified humans begin to reproduce. Oh, and that's, by the way, that may not even be a possibility, because a lot of people don't realize this, but babies born through IVF, right, in vitro fertilization, which is, somewhat close to gene editing, right? It's, it's not gene editing at all, but, it's a higher form of medical intervention. Well, they're showing that those babies that are being born through IVF, that they're infertile. Okay, so that shows you that there is a built-in safe lock that the Lord put in to our genome to stop things like that from replicating. Okay, and these devils, chances are when they do make these designer babies, they're not going to be able to reproduce, right? But we'll see what happens. The long-term outcome for humanity becomes impossible to contain. Okay, and they're already saying that humanity has already been changed, has already been altered because of the C-19 shot. That those people will now have forever changed them and their future generations that come from them's DNA chains. Okay, let's continue. It says, unfortunately, this is not speculation. A similar situation is already underway thanks to the mass administrative COVID-19 mRNA gene therapy injection. So actually, what I just literally said. Okay, so these devils are here modifying and affecting the people's whole DNA, right? They're changing the image of God into their own image. Okay, and then it says, this path leads inevitably to the commodification of human reproduction, where wealthy parents can select preferred traits while failed prototypes are quietly discarded. When scientists and billionaires play God, the result is usually tragedy. The GMO human will undoubtedly face severe health consequences throughout their lifetime. We have seen this story before in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Dr. Frankenstein believed he was advancing humanity, but instead he unleashed a creature he could neither guide nor contain. What began as an experiment in human perfection ended in horror and isolation. And this is a crazy movie. If you haven't watched it, it just came out on Netflix, and it's really good. The Issacharite, Guillermo del Toro, he's the one behind the Hellboy and all those cool, movies. He made this movie, right? And it's pretty good. And there's some spiritual things in it. Nothing so much, touching upon the Israelites, but one cool spiritual aspect is when they brought this Frankenstein back to life. One thing is that when he escapes and he goes out, and he's able to speak to animals and feed them by hand, and they're not scared of him at all. And that took me back to a scripture that tells you that the Lord put the breath of life into man, and he made all beasts scared of us, right? But they weren't scared of Frankenstein, and that's because he didn't have that soul inside of him. He was simply just a dumb beast, right? A beast man, okay? Because again, these devils, they could, this, if anything, they'll be able to get to something like this through their science, but they'll never be able to bring in and out a soul, because that's the breath of life that the Lord puts into us. So enough about that. Let's go and continue. It says, in the 21st century, the monster is not stitched together from corpses, but assembled from code, chromosomes, and venture capital. Silicon Valley's new creators are convinced they can improve upon nature itself. Yet, like Frankenstein, they fail to grasp the full moral weight of what they are summoning into existence. Epidemiologist and founding administrator McCullough Foundation support. So there you go. So that right there is Esau in a nutshell, man. Right? He's delving into the things which he should not, because this ultimately is going to lead down a dark path, which ultimately is going to destroy. And through these two devils, these two married people, which they're not married, dude. These are just two guys, abusing each other. But they here want to modify God's image and make it into their own. These two perverse people. But what does the scripture say? Isaiah 29:16. Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not? Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, he had no understanding? Is it not yet a very little while? And that's ultimately what's going to happen, right? See, these devils, in running the world, they're going to have everything upside down, okay? And all their experiments, all their science, all their facts are going to be esteemed as God's law, or as, that's just the foundational truth, right? And that's because these Edomites have said it, right? The people in Zechariah would say something like, they call it, it's because I'm white, and that's why I'm right, or something like that, right? So the thing is these devils, all the wicked shit that they're doing, from genetically modifying babies to loading all these chemicals in the sky, to making war peace, or war is peace and peace is famine. All these things of turning everything upside down has been esteemed as just normal life today, right? This is why when we bring out the truth of the Bible and the ways of the Bible to our people see that as crazy or backwards or restrictive. No, this current world is backwards, okay? And it's happened because why? Well, because these Edomites have turned everything upside down in their time to rule, okay? This is 2 Thessalonians 2:4. Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And that's ultimately the way that these devils, think, right? These Edomites, the man of perdition, right? This is their mindset, okay? Right? That they oppose everything that is of God. This is why everything they do is opposite of what the Bible is all about, opposite of God's law. Okay? Another thing too, they now, with editing the human genome, they're sitting in the temple of God, right? The temple of God is your body, okay? Right? And our bodies, they, in its rightful spiritual state, if undefiled, it will hold, if you're an Israelite that is, it will hold the Spirit of God within it, okay? And with that, you'll be empowered to do things spiritually that God will bless you with. But these devils, being that, they're now modifying bodies and making them in their own image, now they're sitting in that temple. And what do you think that temple that they're going to make is going to produce? Well, we've already been seeing the outcome from all the people who took the shot, right? We're seeing all the ways of their life around the world. Everything has been corrupted, from the economy, the food system, the medical system, the education system, the military system, right? Everything is defiled in their hands. But this ain't going to last long, because why? Well, the Messiah himself said, Matthew 24 and 22. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. So this is why we're experiencing faster days, right? We're experiencing the 24-hour days as 16 hours because of the increase of the human residents, the increase of time that the Lord is doing. Because why? Because he is rushing to take these devils out of power. But either way, Akim, I just wanted to share this article. I seen it, and it was fucking crazy. I can't believe these Edomite devils, how blatantly wicked they are. But, you know, as the angel Uriel told Ezra, that, you know, we're going to see more wickedness than has ever been described in these last days when wickedness is fully grown. So, either way, Akim, let's go and give all honor and glory and praises to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahshai, Bashem, Kodash. Shalom.